We have a very interesting program coming for you today. First up, Kyle Lucey is a Canadian comedian who was canceled. Shocking. Cancellation has been rampant. Canceled by his colleagues. And little known fact about the comedy world, it's a little high schooly. He told a story about his own childhood and was canceled. His debut comedy special, Damaged Goods, is available on all platforms. And want to sort of poke into what's going on in comedy. This is on the heels of Jerry Seinfeld making a little news, talking about you can't be funny anymore the way we should be able to be, and the importance of comedy. So I want to talk to him about that. And then later in the show, Lindley comes in. She is from the Global Health Project. She's a family practitioner. She's going to update us on a few things, including the World Health Organization and some issues as it pertains to the 10th Amendment. So we will get right with it after this. Our laws as it pertains to substances are draconian and bizarre. The psychopaths start this way. He was an alcoholic because of social media and pornography, PTSD, love addiction, fentanyl and heroin. Ridiculous. I'm a doctor, for sake. Where the hell do you think I learned that? I'm just saying, you go to treatment before you kill people. I am a clinician. I observe things about these chemicals. Let's just deal with what's real. We used to get these calls on Loveline all the time. Educate adolescents and to prevent and to treat. If you have trouble you can't stop and you want to help stop it, I can help. I got a lot to say. I got a lot more to say. Well, Mother's Day is upon us, and Genucel's Mother's Day sale has arrived as well. Perfect timing because Susan and I have upgraded our bundles with even more of our favorite skincare products now for over 50% off. We've been working with Genucel for almost 2 years, and because Genucel makes really the best skincare products in the world, you'll see. In fact, you can see how my skin corrected and repaired in this moment from the show live on our stream. And we know it's important to you. Genucel products use naturally effective proprietary ingredients that are non-GMO, plant-based formulas made in the USA. Just some of the reasons Genucel has 400% the customer loyalty of other skincare brands.
I know I'm a snob about the products I use on my face. Everybody knows it. Every time I go to the dermatologist's office, they're just rows and rows of different creams. And then when I get to the counter, they're overpriced. All kinds of products that you can all find at Genucel.com.
For now until Mother's Day, order Susan's Essentials package to get her favorite Ultra Retinol and Vitamin C serum, as well as other skincare must-haves. Order right now at Genucel.com/Drew and get a free luxury spa box that includes their incredible neck treatment, a free gift, plus free shipping. That is Genucel.com/Drew, GENUCEL.com/DREW. So again, thank you for joining us today. Next week, we'll be out in Miami. Peter McCullough joins us on Tuesday. I may be with Adam Carolla in Salt Lake City tomorrow night. Keep an eye out for that. There's the upcoming guest. Paul Alexander now scheduled on 14th. May 9th, I think Dr. Victor may be with us. Joseph Ladapo, Aaron Kheriaty. If you know, Joe Ladapo is the Surgeon General of Florida. Aaron Kheriaty is a psychiatrist, head of bioethics at UC Berkeley, was fired for daring to question the ethical the ethical power of being able to mandate things like vaccines, whether you can actually do that ethically. How dare he? And he's now one of the lead what do you call them, defendants, I guess, or plaintiffs in what was originally Missouri versus Biden and now before the Supreme Court. Today, as I said, Lindley coming in a little while, a family practitioner. You can follow her on X at KL Veritas, also globalhealthproject.org. But right now, we're bringing in Kyle Lucey. You can follow Kyle on Instagram, Kyle Lucey Comedy. Now I have to spell his name out for you. It's K-Y-L-E is Kyle Lucey, L-U-C-E-Y Comedy. His tour dates are available at kylelucey.com/tour. Kyle, welcome to the program.
Hi, Dr. Drew. Yo, thanks so much for having me. Pardon me, it's a little laggy here. Can you hear me?
There is lagginess, and you just keep forging ahead. I'll back off. So yeah, I noticed today is a little more lag than yesterday, and so don't worry about it. Just keep pushing on. But I'll tell you what. This issue of comedy has been, obviously I worked with Carolla for all these years, and it's been sort of top of mind for me. And I kept saying during the pandemic, like, where are the comedians? I mean, eventually they ended up showing up in drive-in theaters with people in their cars. Think how insane that was. People in their cars watching their comedic performances. But they should have been obliterating people for doing such stupid shit. But what happened to you?
Yeah, I mean, it was a very weird thing, obviously, with COVID. it just obliterated live entertainment. And comedy, unlike any other art form, you can't paint in your garage, you can't jam with your friends or like tune your guitar. So our entire art form was removed from us. So no one could really work on their stuff. You got comedians at the highest level and open micers all in a similar position, which was quite surreal. So we sort of had to basically survive off of like artistic rations, and whatever show you could sort of get, you would do. And that could be, a show in a park, a show in a basement. You just sort of had to comply with whatever the government mandated. And it was mentally an extremely difficult situation because, comedians aren't the most stable people. And without
What?
our, yeah, I mean, yeah, without our, that's like therapy basically for a lot of us. And I'm not, that my special is damaged goods. That's very true. I suffer from a lot of different things, and comedy is the glue that keeps me together. And without that, myself and a lot of other comedians definitely went through some turmoil. But it's nice that things are back now.
And what was it that got you? First of all, two questions. What part of Canada were you in during the dark hours? Was the lockdown in Canada enforced across Canada equally? And what was the story that got you canceled?
So yeah, I was in Toronto, and I mean, there was different parts of Canada that it was basically the same thing. Different parts had like slightly different regulations. Like, the suburbs of Toronto, you could have indoor gatherings, whereas in Toronto, there were none. And it just all depended on how many cases were basically prevalent within any district at any given time. And that sort of determined whether or not you can congregate. But
So you were told.
yeah, honestly, right? And my story is a very nuanced and tricky one, because I was doing an outside comedy show. And a lot of my act is basically talking about, I come from a very abusive household, and I suffered through PTSD and stuff like that. And I have material about how my mom, she was like violent to me, and she sexualized me. And I've been in therapy for 10 years. It really did mess me up. And comedy has been something that has saved my life. And so I have material about it. And so I'll set the stage. I'm on the stage, which is basically just a piece of wood in a park. And we had an amp and we had a mic. And there's like 20 people that I'm doing stand-up to. And, I've been doing comedy for 13 years, and I'm a headliner in Canada, and I'm with the biggest talent agency there, which is Yuck Yucks. And I know what I'm doing. Like, I'm not a new comic. So I'm doing well. Like I'm killing for the crowd. That being said, I guess COVID forced comedy outside. We are in a public park. There were people, like, I want to say 50 feet away, that just saw like this guy on stage say the word rape. Mind you, I was saying my mom, like, it was a joke. My mom never raped me, but I have a joke about it because one time she tried to sexualize me. And they didn't even know what the hell I was really talking about. They came up to me, they swarmed me physically, pushed our amp over, and like aggressively got in our face. And they got it on video. And, I posted it to sort of say, like, can you believe like what comics deal with? There's a lot of, comics that, you look at the Chris Rock incident, where a lot of comics are assaulted. I've had beer cans just thrown at my head if someone didn't like my joke. And it's like, in no other art form is that permissible. And then, something that I think that I deal with is, and I don't know how to quite say this, but if I was a marginalized group, and I understand that as a white man, I deal with lots of privileges. But when I talk about any abuse that I have faced or any turmoil that I have been through, suddenly I'm not like confessing something. I'm not Whereas I would have been celebrated for being brave if I was of a different group. I'm being edgy. I'm trying to get the shock. And, people, I'm constantly categorized as that. And it just makes me feel so contrived to the point where
as somebody, wait a minute. That somebody, as somebody, by telling factually your story with a comedic twist, that somehow, that is like so bizarre, the thinking. You should go on the offense. This is so insane that the people should be mocked. They should be mocked mercilessly for you using, first of all, these things happen. And they happened a lot 20 and 30 years ago. And to make comedy of it is how you get people to look at their own shit. They digest it. They can accept it more. You can process it better. All comedians do some of this stuff. As you say, comedians, sort of, a lot of comedy comes out of trauma. I mean, that's a common thing. The fact that it should be literally illegal for them to come after you for telling your story. There should be some sort of liability, whether it's libel or something that you could or get out of Canada, which is even more crazy. Can you go after any of these people? Would it have to be on social media, or do you know who any of these people are? I mean, you should gather a little army together and go after them. This takes people with trauma and not just marginalizes them, it re-traumatizes them. And this is disgusting. So on you.
No, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, what ended up happening is people found my name, and I believe it was my Facebook page that it said Kyle Lucey, comedian at Yuck Yucks, producer of a show I produced at the time at this club, actor at, I don't even want to say their names, but the acting agency I was with. They clicked on all the links and said, did you know that you have like this like piece of shit basically on your roster? Nobody did any digging. My acting agency fired me. And then
you should sue them. You should sue them. You should sue them. I swear to God. This is what's the comedian's name that we were with up in San Jose with Tyler.
Yeah, Tyler.
I can't remember.
He's been on Gutfeld. Tyler.
He's suing his agency because they fired him for being white and did it on the record. And so he's suing them. I heard
about that.
And so it's like, okay, people want to break the law and do completely inappropriate stuff. They should suffer the consequence. We've got to take action against these people. They must be mocked. They must be mercilessly sort of face the consequences of their. This isn't a little bit aggressive. This is attempts to destroy somebody. It's just shy of actual. Look, in the Soviet Union, when they needed to silence somebody, their move was to get them so they couldn't be employed. They didn't kill many people.
Well, what about TikTok?
What about TikTok?
They want to take that away too, and a lot of comedians use that for their.
I would argue that that's a complicated situation with TikTok. What do you say?
And businesses.
Kyle, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I know. I'm just a comedian. I know you have geniuses on this podcast, but to my knowledge, I think it's because it's Chinese owned and they sort of want an American version of it. That's sort of my knowledge of it, even though.
Well, they just want to not have propaganda.
Tyler Durden. No, not Tyler Durden.
But what about the people who make a living doing it that have a real estate agent, or the comedians like your mom's house?
No, it's because it's kind of complicated. My suspicion is everyone's worried about the Chinese ownership and the fact that they won't hand over control of it. So therefore, they're getting something out of it that they need from a what should we call a national security standpoint. By the same token, get ready, everybody, because now it will become a national security asset for our intelligence agency.
But it'll also run our economy. It's running our economy, though. We're doing that to ourselves.
It's complicated, I would say. And there will be something that replaces it, believe me. The question is what? So anyway, let's stay with comedy.
Yeah.
So I'm incensed and angry and outraged. And really, I do believe that particularly when it comes to mental health issues and medical issues generally, cases, like we in medical school, we study cases. That's how we learn. When people are courageous enough to share their case with other people, it's extremely instructive. It lowers the barrier for care. It decreases their denial. It's all the things we want from a health standpoint. And whoever it is that was going after you should be shamed and mocked for their behavior.
I totally agree. And still to this day, I'm not sure who it was. It was some sort of mob, and I had a comedy club that had my side still say, we can't work you, because they're like, we've been closed down for like almost 2 years, and we don't want these people are
Tyler.
like, I'm getting
Tyler Fisher.
Oh, right on. Nice.
There's the tweet where I'll read it. I'm currently suing a talent manager who told me they won't work with me because I'm a white man. And he has the tape. I've heard the tape. He played it on a talk show. So it's the racism must end is what he's saying. So go ahead. Keep going, Tyler. Kyle, rather.
Yeah. No, I mean, I had a comedy club basically say, like, I know that your material, you're great, but these people are like basically threatening to like throw bricks through my windows. And like, we've been closed down for like 2 years. My business can't afford to sort of have your back. And like, so I was sort of cast aside. And then that's what I'm saying. This is sort of, sort of at the epicenter of my point. This is victim blaming. This is the thing that like these left people say that you shouldn't do. Here I am. Yeah. And I genuinely believe if I was of a marginalized group, I think I would be more celebrated for coming
I would argue,
about
I would urge you not even to bring that in, because that's neither here nor there. It's re-abusing an abuse survivor. It's not even, it's literally abusing you again for discussing the fact that you are an abuse survivor. It's overt. And it is, that's why I feel like there should be a law against it.
But my point is, sometimes, like if you look at perception, sometimes I show up to a comedy club, you look at how my hair is, I comb it back, I wear a leather jacket sometimes. People might think that I'm sort of saying this for shock. And that's just how I dress. And that's sort of what I mean. I mean, sometimes the way I present myself, I need to be mindful when I'm also doing the same material that I'm doing, how it comes across. And that's something I am working on. But
fair to you. Look, but here's we can all learn something from horrible, bad experiences. I love that you would sort of try to, what was my role in this? How can I learn from it? Always important, which it's another, frankly, layer to this, and probably more comedy can be mined in there.
Yeah, no, totally. And, that's the thing too. Like when one door closes, others open. I mean, I'm on the Dr. Drew show, baby.
Here we are.
But
here we are.
This isn't the only time. Like a lot of people were sort of like, "Oh my God, I can't believe that. You would be great for this." And if anything, it just sort of burned a lot of dead wood in my life. And things have never been better, honestly. And whereas back then, I wasn't getting what I'm getting now. So maybe it was a good thing.
But Kyle, I'm glad for you. I'm delighted. I couldn't be happier. However, we should all be completely preoccupied with trying to figure out how to make certain this doesn't happen again. This doesn't happen to anybody else. Even 30 or 50 years from now, it's not something we can witness. This was the inexcusable behavior. And now, as opposed to putting forces in place to prevent this kind of excess, now we have forces coming in like the World Health Organization, which I'm going to talk to Kat about in a few minutes, who want more of this, who want to have complete control over the world. And this is the part that is just, we have to fight like maniacs against this and hold people accountable for their excesses. It was grotesque. It was mob. It was violent. If they had guillotines, they would have used them. And we need to hold them accountable for that.
No, I mean, you hit the nail on the head, and you're completely right when you say that this is defamation, because something that I didn't do cost me work, and it harmed my business. Right. Now, it's just on top of that, I seem to be very resourceful, and I got fired from my acting agency, and I got another agent in literally 45 minutes. And so things happen because
Don't let
I'm
that
very
take
resourceful.
don't let, I get it, but don't let that
No,
reduce your outrage and anger at this. But how is Canada going generally? You know what I mean? Is there like is there anyone you can turn to tell this story? Is there anyone that's receptive to these ideas about the excess? Or are they all still in the mass delusion?
no, the culture of Canada is, I've been to America a few times, and the culture of Canada, especially for comedy, it is different. It's not as bad as you might think. And even like I was extremely outraged by this. And this situation severely affected my self-perception, my mental health.
Oh my God, I
I
bet.
was outraged. This sort of my girlfriend even broke up with me, and I remember that. I completely forgot about that. There was a lot of stuff personally that this put me through.
Mm, mm.
And this actually happened years ago, though. So that's why it seems a little bit more removed. But yes, the culture of Canada, it's very nuanced. I would say edgier comedy, it's like juggling flaming bowling pins. People like that element of danger. The thing is, you're just not given any permission to drop one once you light them on fire, because they could go in the crowd and hurt somebody.
Right.
That being said,
Right.
it's very
You got to be
weird
funny.
how you have like that. I have a little saying for myself saying the frequency is funny. And a lot of people ask me,
Yeah.
how do you get away with this? How do you write stuff like that? My goal isn't to write an edgy joke. If I find it funny, I will say it. That being said, my lens is different than most people because, I used to wake up like to my mom, like hammer fisting me in the face. And the next day she'd wake up, she's like, well, I can't drink tequila. And we all laugh. And it was like, it was fucked up, but that's literally how my humor was shaped. And like, this might sound weird, but I really relate to a guy like Eminem coming up in a trailer park. I grew up in trailer parks, and this is, how I create my art. And I think I do feel in Canada, culturally, especially when you're doing stand up, you might say something really funny, but sure, it might be a little on the edgier side. People laugh for a second, then they look around to see if other people are laughing, and then they'll start laughing, or they'll hold it in because they're like, oh, I don't know if I'm allowed to find that funny. Whereas like what I notice in a lot of American crowds, if they find it funny, they'll just blurt it out, and they're much more free.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like in Canada, there's just been so many examples of people, just getting in trouble for thinking what they think and feeling what they feel. Just insane.
Yeah.
To even think about.
It's insane, right? By the way, you might check out Daryl Hammond's story. He had a similar mom. I would dare say even worse. Do you know who Daryl Hammond is? A former Saturday Night Live. Well, he's told me some crazy stories.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. Like, I feel like other forms of art are never put under this scrutiny. You'll watch the Saw movies. It would be crazy if that.
That's great. It's an interesting statement because I think immediately of the photographer from Greenwich Village, Maplethorpe. People like that who, when they really hit a nerve, do get a lot of scrutiny. I mean, it's sort of how you're in the right zone, even that you're in where you should be. It becomes dangerous. It becomes evocative, doesn't it?
No, yes, and that's 100% true. I just more so meant like for comedy, we don't have paint to color like red to depict blood, or we don't have instruments to strum a minor chord to create this sort of moodiness. We're very naked, and I guess similar to photography, we merely have it's very naked. So a lot of times our art could be confused with like endorsing what we're actually saying, and I think that's where a lot of people get into trouble. But we're not. This is merely like every joke I have is very similar to a painting that this might be a mood. I'm trying to make people feel something. I'm not endorsing murder or whatever. Something. It's a crazy thought. And wouldn't it be just completely outlandish to laugh at something incredibly like way over the top, almost cartoonishly brutal. Like that's sort of a vibe that I like to create. And if it's funny, you could say it, but a lot of the times I think some people even get more mad when it does work, like something that hits a nerve when they hear people laugh. Then they're like, "Oh, we got to end this before."
So hold that thought. I want you to give me some examples of that. And when we come back, I want to spend a few minutes talking about. We've really kind of getting into a whole thing about comedy here, a little deeper into the nature of comedy and mirth and its role in a society, because it was glaringly absent during COVID. It was missed. It could have been very effective. All I had was Adam Carolla screaming about how everyone had become a bunch of pussies and sheep. He kept saying, "You're all pussies and sheep. You're all pussies and sheep." And it turns out that now that this has been sort of studied, 70% of people were just kind of going along with it because they were kind of afraid. Much like your Comedy Store owner, you're just kind of going along with what it's supposed to do. And in fact, comedy could have helped people stand up to the excesses, the insanity of some of this stuff. All right, Kyle Lucey in here, KyleLucey.com. We're going to take a little break. Be right back after this. Let's talk about aging, because everyone wants to know how to slow it down. For almost a decade, I've been taking a healthy aging supplement called True Niagen. This supplement boosts NAD. That's something that cells can't live without. It's done with a patented form of nicotinamide riboside called NR, or Niagen. It's more efficient and more scientifically reviewed than NMN or other NAD boosters. True Niagen is truly the best way to boost NAD levels, and it's made by Chromadex. They are the gold standard in the NAD space. Dr. Charles Brenner, the scientist who discovered the NAD boosting potential of NR, explains.
And the center of the metabolism that allows the conversion of food into energy is NAD coenzymes. And NAD gets disturbed in the aging process. And as we're exposed to conditions of metabolic stress, Niagen, which is the form of NR that was developed by Chromadex, is the best and the only fully legal form of NR. And this is really the gold standard for NAD boosting vitamins.
I love this product. I urge you to try it. Go to drdrew.com/True Niagen for 20% off your order. That is drdrew.com/True Niagen, TRUNIAGEN, and enter Dr. Drew at checkout, DRDREW, enter it at checkout for 20% off. You asked for it, and the wellness company has delivered. The medical emergency kit, replete with ivermectin, prescription antibiotics, and more, continues to fly off the shelves. We keep one here at home, and there are 3 new kits you need to know about, and more are coming. The Contagion Emergency Kit was inspired by the high demand for the medical kits. In that Contagion kit, you'll find ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, antibiotics, budesonide, and a nebulizer. And a must for your next trip is the Travel Emergency Kit, something I made sure exactly what I give my patients is in this kit and some more. The kit includes remedies for jet lag, variety of infections, even GI ailments. Imagine your flight getting grounded anywhere, say even in the U.S., and you start getting sick. You do not want to be at the mercy of the U.S. healthcare system or any healthcare system. At home, we keep the ultimate first aid kit on hand. It has over 20 essential supplies and medications for situations when time is of the essence. Order one for your car and your go bag. Because these kits contain prescriptions, your purchase includes a telemedicine consultation as well as an instruction manual. Go to drdrew.com/TWC for 10% off. That is drdrew.com/TWC for 10% off all your orders. I'm very excited about these kits. Go to drdrew.com/TWC. As I always say, I take True Niagen every day, and of course the emergency medical kit with TWC, and we are traveling with the travel kit that I helped design. I'm very proud of that. But I want to tell you about something else. Prices, of course, keep going up, so it's easy to get in debt, but how to get out of debt is much more difficult. Listen, you don't have to go through it alone because their help is available thanks to PDS Debt. PDS Debt has customized options for everyone struggling with credit card, personal loans, collections, or medical bills. And who isn't these days? It's just getting ridiculous. If you're making payments every month on your debt and your balances aren't going down fast enough, this program is for you. PDS Debt provides options that consolidate your debts into one low monthly payment. Anyone with $10,000 or more in eligible debt qualifies, and there's no minimum credit score required. Even if you have bad credit, fair credit, PDS Debt can help. PDS Debt is a top-rated company on Google and has an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau, BBB. PDS Debt cares about helping you get out of debt. Check out their reviews and see how many mentions PDS Debt employees by name. See how many of them actually mention PDS Debt. It is incredible. They're so happy with the service they provide. You can get a free debt analysis right now at pds.com/Dr. Drew. It's DREW. It only takes 30 seconds. That is pdsdebt.com/DREW. One last time, pdsdebt.com/Dr. Drew. We are talking, of course, with Kyle, who's back. Kyle, Lucey. We're going to have Kat Lindley in here in a few minutes. Kyle, I'm getting a message from my producer saying, bring up the Seinfeld comments. But I mean, you know, I mentioned it at the beginning, and neither you nor I sort of got traction with it. But what did you think about his statement? I was sort of trying to reframe it exactly what he said, which is comedy is important.
No, Seinfeld is like, if I were to think of comedy like hip hop, Seinfeld's one of the GOATs. He's one of the Mount Rushmores, on comedy. And you sort of need to hear a voice like that say exactly what he is saying. And, like I said, as long as it's funny, it's going to be okay. And that's a specific point to live comedy. But we're in this weird sort of era now where you could be doing stand-up and killing in front of the crowd you're in front of. And if you record it and put it online, people could like clip out parts of it and take away all the rapport you built, take away, the setup that made you get there. Look, there's no way you could say something, in my opinion, especially if you look at the crowd and it's like a diverse crowd, there's no way you could say that type of material and get huge laughs unless, you got there through setting it up the right way. Like you can't just go up and say that. So people that are like this, like headline culture and this like clipping culture that are taking things out of context, they're just like how we said before, it's defamation. It's ruining, like a comedian is a small business. And of course, a guy like Seinfeld, a huge business. But for especially like people coming up, you're ruining lives. This is like, it's like putting a brick through a bakery window.
Let's talk about this for a second, because I remember, back when I was in MTV in the early days, we were actually assaulted by the right. That was where we had our trouble, was what was called the religious right at the time, who had very distorted views about biology and things that were all over the place. And I was fighting very hard to push back. This was during the AIDS pandemic, and they had feelings about that. And they were constantly trying to silence us, and actually did. If you remember, it's why Howard Stern left terrestrial radio and went to went to satellite, because he was canceled by the right. And George Bush was president, and he had an FCC chairman that was actually Colin Powell's son that was very aggressive. And it was a difficult time. It's so shocking to see the left adopt the same, I want to call it the playbook, but they've taken it and put it on not just steroids, but like given it a nuclear power plant, and are going after people with absolute, they're wielding a saber all the time. And it's nothing. It's so much more aggressive and violent and distorted and dishonest as compared to the right, who had sort of one note they were constantly after us about. What do you say about that?
No, I mean, and especially, you remind me of something especially that is relevant in Canada. I'm not a political guy. I literally just leave my house every night and I do comedy, but you can't not see it sometimes. And, you got our Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, regularly calls people on the right racist. This guy is the most racist prime minister in recent history. You know, if anyone on the right were to be caught in blackface once, if anyone on the right were to bring a Nazi into parliament and give them a standing ovation, it would be over. They'd have to resign. The fact that he's able to have so much play. I mean, I think earlier we were talking about, or I think I was even watching a clip of your show of the Hunter Biden scandal and how it just always gets swept under the rug. And at the end of the day, it doesn't seem like there's a checks and balances. It seems like they have some sort of omnipotent power. And, you know, just to criticize the left doesn't mean you're necessarily endorsing the right, but it's getting alarming how much of this snowball is coming downhill and nothing can stop it. It becomes this,
that's the
I know
problem.
This is the point. Yeah, this point people make a lot. It's become, this ideology has become a new religion, and to question it is blasphemy. And it's incredibly alarming. And I think genuinely, if the same behavior was on the right, people would criticize it equally. At least I would hope
Everyone
so.
should really, I hope so. I criticize all this. We should all be speaking about everything. But check out my interview with Matthias Desmond, if you guys haven't seen that yet, anyone who's listening to this, where he really lays out the mass formation psychology, how it happens, and how it's 20% of people, narcissists, who really get swept into propaganda and are quite hypnotized and are quite convinced of things. And then, you know, I've seen forever that what happens is with narcissists is when they conform a mob effectively, they will begin scapegoating immediately. We saw it in Nazi Germany. We saw it in the French Revolution. It's over and over and over again. It's what happened. It's, you know, certain primitive organizations down in South America. It's in Mexico. This is what humans have done in all settings throughout human history, and this is no exception. And this scapegoating phenomenon has to be met with force. It's the only way it stops. It doesn't stop. And I'm not saying you have to, you know, be violent with somebody. I'm not advocating that at all. I'm saying it has to be aggressively counter-measured. It has to be pushed back because it will not stop. There must be consequences for forming a mob and hurting other people. And particularly when it's unfounded, it's dishonest, it's has a clear intent to harm. You want to raise issues about something somebody said, by all means, go at it. Have an argument, fine. But to go to your employer and your comedy club, this is the part that I find reprehensible. So, humbly.
I love the way you approach it, to be honest, because you take a very measured approach, and you know, like that's exactly what is going to sort of defeat this. To be firm, you know, exactly how you are, but to not let it slide. And you know, admittedly, I have let a lot slide. And I think a lot of the reasons why is because I'll tell you this, I think I mentioned this before, when your producer contacted me that you want to interview, I wasn't even going to reply because I thought it was a joke. Because I swear to God, I'm never I'm constantly used to just sort of being forgotten, that I just sort of figure things out on my own. But there's been no major platform that even would touch me in Canada, I think.
Because you're radioactive. See, this is why I think I have a great producer, a booking producer, and she knows I like talking to people that have been canceled, because as soon as somebody's canceled, I figure they have something to say. They must have said something close to the bone. I'm not kidding. And it's not. And when in every single, and this is what we've been doing for a couple of years now, and every single person I interview, I learn something. I think about something. I form some new ideas because of them. I don't agree with everything they say at all times. I'm just interested in talking to people if somebody came after them. And it started with the medical community, because I was seeing that the people that they were really going after were exceptionally extraordinary people, extraordinary professionals, extraordinary teachers, extraordinary human beings. And I figured, why would they go after those guys?
Like you.
No.
Like you got canceled too.
Well, I got canceled too, but I wouldn't put me in that same. I'm not in a J.
You've been canceled a few times though. You keep bouncing back.
I keep just moving
but
forward.
That's the thing. What is canceled? What is canceled? You look at a guy like Shane Gillis, who was canceled, and now he's he was hosting SNL. I I think canceled is such a permanent term in terms, that's sort of what my point was before, because if you're actually talented and resourceful, there's no way, and you didn't, especially if you didn't do anything wrong, especially if
Right.
something, a moment in your life was bastardized for political gain, the truth always comes out. People aren't, there's a lot of transparency, especially if people care about you. They'll do a little bit of digging and say, oh, there's no way he said that, and find it out themselves. So I think, canceling, in my opinion, it only really happens if you genuinely like break the law, like Harvey Weinstein, for instance. But for the most part,
or if it really harms your mental health and you can't function, you collapse, you become unable to do your work or something, and that is what they're risking when they do this stuff. I don't know. I just think there should be people lost, even though we're fine, we got through it. You're right. These are the people that there are plenty of people that literally defend cancellation based on what you're saying. And I don't think that should pass. I think it should be no, because here's the short-term consequence you caused. You should be responsible for that. And especially, and even I'm really worried about, this is kind of the interesting part, is what if the person is sort of so-called deserving of it, if they've done something that really is egregious? Are you at your liberty? You're at liberty to say something, but are you at your liberty to harm that person or to intentionally try to harm them? That's something to struggle with. I mean, let's say you were a horrible person and they wanted to go to somebody wanted to go, but still, I think mobs in general need to be there needs to be a firm response to mobs. It just has to be, because the mobs are not rational. They're not good. They don't have good judgment. They don't change direction. They don't care ultimately. So I don't know. We got to figure that out.
No, I agree. And it's this whole mob culture is like setting a flame and trying to control it, but the wind can take it anyway. And there's so many moving parts in a mob. You don't know how one person's going to swing it a certain way, and then it becomes this uncontrollable thing that is so destructive. And especially, I think that there should be some sort of consequence, especially for wrongful. I don't like the term canceling, but I guess you could use it. But wrongful firings, wrongful, however you would say, because
I agree with that.
It is defamation.
Because companies should be, first of all, companies, talk about pussies and sheep that Adam keeps saying over and over again throughout the pandemic. No one was worse than the companies. As soon as, like you said, you became radioactive in Canada instantly, and everyone dropped you. Those people should have consequences too. They need to, because they have to next time think about it before they do that. And then now you've taken the teeth out of the mob's ability to do this stuff. And I think there should be remedies, and there probably are, and I would urge you to look into. I don't know how Canada works that way, but listen, Carl, I got to talk to Kat. It's been a pleasure to talk with you. Before we kind of wrap up, just give me a couple minutes on comedy's importance in the world and society. To me, it is the one place where we try to access the truth in ways that are tolerable. That's sort of how I think about it.
Yeah, okay. I want to be humble when I say this, but and I'll talk about comedians who I revere. You look at Chappelle, you look at Pryor. A comedian is a modern day philosopher, and because we're not politicians. There is that fail switch of that. I was just joking. Is that you get to say a lot of stuff that people are thinking, and you could even see this. When major cultural events happen, if you go on social media, there's a lot of truth being spoken through memes. And it's a way people could say stuff, get their point across, and not get, something that might be a little bit divisive taken down. So I feel like it's interesting that like a spicy pepper is very sweet to open your taste buds to sort of inject the spice. And similarly, comedy is funny, so it's very accessible, and it can spread very quickly. And most comedians would agree with this, it's the message behind the jokes that is the most important. And that's also what makes a comedian's career be better, is if they have truth, because a premise is more important than the punchline. The punchlines are just the breadcrumbs that lead them to your point or your message. And when we stop letting comedians say what they think, it's sort of it massively stops communication on a grand scale, which is very alarming.
Yes, I agree. I was a huge fan of Pryor back when he was doing his thing in the early days of the 70s. And I will go back and listen to some of that stuff now just to delight in it. And it occurred to me a few years ago that he was really like, he was a poet. He wasn't just a storyteller. He wasn't just a truth teller. That was like Homer. We were listening to a poet. And I'm not kidding. I really reacted to it that way. I thought, he is carrying our culture forward through history with this. We will be able to look back on these things and be in the moment with him. The truth and and listen to his delivery. It was poetry. I swear to God. Anyway, I appreciate you being here and hope you stay in touch, and good luck with everything.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. I had a blast, and it means a lot. It means a lot because it's really making me rethink of all the bad stuff that happened, and I'm looking at it in a new lens. I appreciate it.
Go get them.
Thank you.
We need to push back. All right, my friend. Thank you, Cal. Coming up next, Caleb, is Kat in the house there? I know she was sort of standing by. Okay, so Kat Lindley is a Croatian-born American-trained family practitioner, family physician. She's got a board certification in family medicine. She practiced in Texas. She loved the idea of taking care of the whole family. My father was a family practitioner. Late in her career, she became interested in helping find solutions improving overall healthcare system. She's been involved with many organizations, including Global COVID Summit and AAPS, and is passionate about patients and profession, as we all are, hopefully, the people we try to bring on this show. President and co-founder of Global Health Project. She'll tell us about that. Kat, welcome to the program. Welcome.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
I think a great place to start is the Global Health Project. Tell us about that.
So we got together last summer to start coalition of organizations, leaders, to bring back awareness about what's happening, trying to empower people to take back their health, their financial power, their children education, really just helping people find their place in this confusing world.
Well, I have felt for some time, you're younger than I am, but I've been fighting, insurance resources and regulators and, my whole career fighting that stuff off, trying to get the proper care for patients. And I feel like we've just lost that battle. It's now even more centralized. Now everyone's an employee of a hospital. Now you can't advocate for patients. It's just set up impossibly. So I've been very interested in trying to get things into the hands of patients, to just empower the patients directly. How does your organization do that?
Well, one of the things I strongly feel that the only way we return trust in medicine is private practice of medicine. Even before COVID, I worked with different legislators on federal level and state level trying to fight against Obamacare, universal health care. I'm not really in favor of anything like that because you have government bureaucracy pretty much behind the healthcare system. And that's kind of what we've seen during this COVID crisis, where physicians were not independent enough to truly advocate for patients first. And that's where protocols came into place. And, you could not have this conversation with your physician if you were not for taking the vaccine. Everyone had to do like one size fits all. So the only way we can really get some sanity back is private practice of medicine, and our organization advocates for that and also empowers patients to really take their health back. The healthcare industry is the only industry where you go to the hospital, you get a product, and you have no idea how much you're going to pay for it. Patients need to demand better.
Yeah, I completely agree with you that it's got to get back to ideally we get back to the patient-doctor unit. My God, if we were adulterating the lawyer-client relationship the way we have destroyed the doctor-patient relationship, can you imagine the screaming from the lawyer groups? It's just, and yet they're the ones that have perpetrated a lot of this stuff. So tell me a little bit, you mentioned getting financially back. I understand you've got some concerns about banks' role in some of these things.
So, when it comes to World Health Organization, the treaty and the amendments to international health regulation, everyone says, well, what happens if we don't comply? How are they going to make sure that the member states comply with these different resolutions and articles? And that's kind of where this IMF and central bank comes into play, because they can just call the loans right to the countries, to the member state countries, and they can put pressure that way. Everyone talks about, United Nations has an army, they're going to bring the army. No, that's nonsense. They can do it on a financial basis and put pressure on the member states that they're going to default on the loans they have. And it's really important to start looking at that financial aspect.
I feel like we're getting some slow traction against this global health treaty, so-called, slowly in various countries and in this country, and certainly almost state by state, where people are looking at centralizing authority, giving these nudniks centralized authority above sovereign officials, duly elected officials, is just a level of insanity that when you say it out loud, you can't believe they're pushing for that.
It is crazy, and there is definitely push from several European countries. And I know you had Dr. Meryl Nass a few weeks back, and she talked about her efforts in different countries. Her and I actually were just in Italy and met with Italian senators and physicians there discussing this. There are people who are concerned about what's happening, but overall, our governments are pretty much saying, hey, if we like it, we're going to sign on. The good news is, I know, right? The good news is that we have actually done a decent job. And I really want to applaud everyone for calling their legislators, for posting on X, for doing, different pieces online, Substacks, because they have had to come back to the drawing table and change the draft. And recently, last week, they released the pandemic treaty draft and then the draft to the amendments of international health regulation. They've changed the language, they've hidden behind legalese, but essentially the essence of the documents is still there. They still want the power to lock down the area, to tell us what type of vaccines we can give, treatments. They can order quarantine, isolation. Censorship was taken out of Article 44 and put in Annex, but they still talk about disinformation, misinformation. So essentially, they've kept everything there. But the fact that they have to play defense is actually really good. And I know you and I are going to talk about 10th Amendment, and it's really exciting to see the states fighting back. States have had enough. The federal government has pretty much abandoned their job, but states have said, no, we're going to kind of try to play this card.
Well, describe the 10th Amendment, what you're talking about, then I'll react to it.
So the 10th Amendment essentially says that any power that the federal government doesn't have goes back to the state, and that's considered police power. So healthcare is actually considered police power that state has right over the federal government over. So some of the states have decided to write bills specifically that have to do with that. So you have, for example, in March, I think it was March 26, Louisiana passed the Senate Bill 133. And the best thing about that bill, I actually wrote it down so I don't forget, I think it was 37-0 votes. So Democrats voted with Republicans on this 37-0. It passed the Senate, and this week it went to the House committee, passed 8-2, and now it's going to go to the full floor for a vote. Louisiana has been a huge leader in this, and there is every indication that the governor would sign this bill if it passes the House. And then you have Oklahoma, who is pretty much saying the same thing, that the World Health Organization WEF, United Nations, would not have jurisdiction in their states. And that bill was passed in Oklahoma. House, it's a Senate Bill 426. It's a House version of that bill. And now the Senate is going to pass it as well. And then it's going to go to their governor. And you have Alabama, who has a House bill that passed and a resolution. So states are waking up and defending their own citizens.
Well, you said they've had enough. And I think that's an exactly accurate way to describe what has happened here, because the federalist system, the federalism that was put in place in order to form a more perfect union of the states, has become a tyranny over the states rather than something to facilitate the union amongst the states. They've so outstripped and overreached that states almost have to push back. And some states can go along with it if they wish, that's fine. But the people just have lost track of what that federal system was designed to do. It was for the post office, for the roads and the interstate commerce. I mean, that's about it. That's what they're general protection of the homeland. Even that gets kind of wonky now. But this whole wild, it's so far beyond what the Constitution prescribed. It's good that the states are pushing back, don't you think?
I think it's excellent. It also gives indication to the Biden administration that the citizens don't want this. I think the best we can do is make this an election issue. And if we do have debates between our presidential candidates, we need to ask each one of them how they stand on this.
Yeah.
I'm not a lawyer, but if you look at the Article 18 of this amendments to international health regulation, this is essentially what the Article 18 says. It says that if there is some kind of emergency somewhere, an outbreak, the Director General can call for public health emergency of international concern. If he does that, he can actually decide that you need to close the borders. He can, like I said, order treatments, diagnostics, institute a vaccine program, lock down the area, limit the trade to that area, call for quarantine isolation. So if you're closing down a border of a country, if you're limiting trade to that country, isn't that an attack on national sovereignty? And then as far as you and I are concerned, if they're telling us how we treat our patients and what patients can have, isn't that an attack on personal sovereignty, on patient-physician relationship? You're going to have this supranational agency pretty much become a global authority on health. And that's something that it was never intended to be.
It's not how health practice works, as you know as well as I, that your most efficient unit is a well-trained caring physician and a motivated, informed patient. That's it. Nothing is more efficient than that. And the reason that we go out, you and I, and get our residency and see thousands of cases is because in the setting of the human being, the variabilities are infinite, and you have to develop judgment to make the right call for that particular context and that individual. Forget just the biological complexities, which are infinite, but then you put in the interpersonal, the psychiatric, the historical, cultural elements, the family. We have to take that all into account. And giving that to some centralized authority, God knows where, is a level of bizarreness. I can't believe we're having this conversation. Didn't we learn from COVID? It's a bad idea. See, people seem to have, did you like that? Or was that, maybe you live in a state where you didn't see the excesses. In California, I don't think anybody liked it. People signed up for it, but I don't know that they can't see the excesses. Do you agree with me?
100%. And if it's up to, World Health Organization, they want to keep us in this perpetual state of pandemics where they would weaponize public health to put us in an authoritarian state where governments and World Health Organization would have powers and dictate the way of life that we all have.
It's ridiculous. Listen, I can now say without being canceled something I said that got me canceled, which was about 10 years before COVID, we had a pandemic. And it was rather serious. It was called H5N1. I'm sorry, H1N1 at that point. H5N1 is the one they're trying to whip up frenzy about now. But this was I had H1N1. I contracted it. It was brutal. And thank God I was, 10 years younger so I could withstand it. It was a brutal illness and it was a pandemic. And tell me, any of you who are listening right now, did any of you know at the time you were in the middle of a pandemic? No, because the Obama administration appropriately decided to kind of let's kind of let the system work. They played it exactly right. There was nothing they should have done differently or could have really done differently. They did it right. And to even think about that, examine that, bring it up was grounds for cancellation in and around COVID. So everybody, take a look at how pandemics can be managed. You don't have to bring the world to an end. You don't have to create a totalitarian system to manage a pandemic. You can leave it to Dr. Lindley and myself and the communities to figure out what to do as things develop. It's what we do all the time. We have a murine typhus outbreak right now. Do you even know it? We have a, what do we have recently? Oh, we had a tuberculosis outbreak. Way more serious. Do you even know it? Yeah, you shouldn't know it. You should not know it. That's our concern. We should be dealing with that. Your thoughts?
No, that's exactly right. I think if they allowed the physicians to do their jobs from the beginning, I remember the early days. I was on phone calls with colleagues in France and UK, and everyone was discussing, try this, try that. Let's figure out how to deal with this. And
right. As we always do.
We that early exactly.
As we always do.
Doesn't matter what comes along. We will figure it out.
I agree with you. People don't have. I'm glad you said that because I have so much faith in our peers. I've been through so many things with American medicine that at the beginning of COVID, that was my first thought was because I was in training during the HIV or what we called at the time HTLV3, if you remember, epidemic. And man, in a very short period of time, there were effective treatments. And when it started, every man I treated, I had to tell them he was going to die in 6 months, and I was never wrong. And all of a sudden, we could go to 9 months, and then it was 12 months, and then we had much better treatments because we kept them alive long enough to come up with the better treatments. And that experience informed me that I believed that we would come up with solutions with this one too. But a question I have for you is your accent. I don't know where I can't quite place it. And wherever you were raised, does that inform some of your opinions now and how?
So I was born in Yugoslavia at the time. Now it's Croatia. And I grew up in communism. I left at 18 one day before the war started. And I went to live in Italy as a nanny and eventually came to the States. And I truly am an example of American dream. So this is why I've always felt compelled to talk about what's happening, especially when it comes to the World Health Organization or United Nations, because what they have in store for us is this idea that we need to be under global governance. I always tell people they need to look at the European Union. I think Americans are not informed enough about European Union. It started as an idea, right, to put these countries together so they have more power, more, economical ties, trade, and all that. But what has become is this microcosm where these countries have lost their own identities and there is only European Union. Their motto right now is One Europe. And that's what the United Nations has in store for the rest of us. They want global governance. They want one world. And what is World Health Organization? Introducing the One Health. The idea that the lives of humans are not more important than plants or animals, and it's all interconnected with climate change. And with the articles in IHR, with the pandemic treaty, essentially the World Health Organization will become global authority on health. They can lock us down, they can open us up as they deem necessary. So, if there is something that's coming along and they need a little bit more control in that area, hey, there is a pandemic around the corner. Let's decide what we're going to do. We need to realize that we don't need World Health Organization. We don't need organization like the United Nations. If there is an outbreak, if there is some kind of public health concern, you and I can get on a phone with our colleagues all over the world. Our administrations can do the same. People who are negotiating these things are not physicians. Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, he's not a physician. These are bureaucrats. deciding how health is going to be managed. And as you eloquently said, the only people in the room should be patient and a physician, no one else.
Dr. Lindley can be followed on X at KL Veritas, also globalhealthproject.org. You can follow the Global Health Project on X as well, Global H Project. And Dr. Lindley, any last words?
So there is something encouraging coming from the federal government. Senator Johnson wrote a letter that 49 Republican senators signed. I actually posted it on my Twitter, and essentially is asking our administration to withdraw from the negotiations of the treaty and the amendments to international health regulation. Now, I don't at the administration, but at least senators are fighting back. And hopefully we can get Democrats to come along, yes.
That would be amazing. So here we go. Appreciate you being here. Keep fighting the good fight. We appreciate you spending a little time with us. And if we can help you out, you let us know.
Thank you so much.
You bet it, Dr. Kat Lindley. And coming up next week, Tuesday, Peter McCullough comes back for a command performance. I'm going to try to get Dr. Victory in here later in the week, maybe, something like that. Paul Alexander on the 14th. His engine's been running hot, so he's got a lot to say. Dr. Joe Ladapo, Florida Surgeon General. Dr. Aaron Cariotti, psychiatrist, bioethicist. We got action-packed guests coming up, so be a part of that. And you can always, And I by the way, I sent a note out to Van Jones just today. I was like, we need to get diverse opinions in here. Let's get some more people in. If you have any suggestions, it is contact@drdrew.com. And we appreciate you all being here. And we will see you on Tuesday at 3 o'clock. Oh, I'm sorry, 2 o'clock, Caleb. Help me with that. 2 o'clock Pacific time. Is that correct?
So
we have that set yet?
It's still kind of up in the air because it's an
away
from home show. Yeah, but it's most likely
it's an away from home show. And we're trying to accommodate Dr. McCullough, too, who may have some stuff right afterwards. So I want to get him in and out before he has to go somewhere. All right, we'll see you anyway, 2 or 3 o'clock Tuesday next week. Be here. We'll see you then. Ask Dr. Drew is produced by Caleb Nation and Susan Pinsky. As a reminder, the discussions here are not a substitute for medical care, diagnosis, or treatment. This show is intended for educational and informational purposes only. I am a licensed physician, but I am not a replacement for your personal doctor, and I am not practicing medicine here. Always remember that our understanding of medicine and science is constantly evolving. Though my opinion is based on the information that is available to me today, some of the contents of this show could be outdated in the future. Be sure to check with trusted resources in case any of the information has been updated since this was published. If you or someone you know is in immediate danger, don't call me, call 911. If you're feeling hopeless or suicidal, call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 800-273-8255. You can find more of my recommended organizations and helpful resources at drdrew.com/help.